Fremantle left the Harbour City with a win thanks to a Logan McDonald shank, while under the lid at Marvel, the Saints' season may have officially sank. The Gold Coast took care of the Pies to continue their unbeaten home streak, while Cripps, Walsh & Co confirmed the lid has completely blown off Lygon Street. The entire AFL community outside of HQ is starting to vent its spleen, even if CEO Andrew Dillon tried to tell us the umpiring is as good as it's ever been. To look towards a top 8 defining round 17, this is Triple M Footy's midweek rub with the 2004 Wizard Home Loans Cup winner Lee Montagna.
Hello, Rabsy. You've lifted your game there. I reckon you felt threatened by Jack Heveren's performance last week. But I must admit, we do great things on this show, but it is the highlight listening to your poem. So well done.
I was actually going to clip you then, but then you came back and turned it around.
No, clip him anyway.
Yeah, no, it's good to see you, Joe. But Jack was actually hovering around about 15 minutes ago before the show. I'm like, what's going on here? So he's just trying to muscle in. He's got the beard growing. And he's tried a bit of a rebrand, a bit of a bad boy rebrand is our man, Jack Heveren. The former face of mainland cheese bites, Daisy Thomas.
I was going to say, I didn't think you were threatened, but the fact that you've gone into that much detail clearly means that you were.
Yeah.
You tell us his address and what he's wearing and what sort of jocks he
He
wears.
lives in Langwarren.
What sort of jocks?
No, I don't know, probably Bonds.
So did you give him a look
No,
and
he's
said,
more
out
of
you
a
go?
Rio operator,
Yeah, I thought he was more of a nun, maybe spaghetti undie style.
And two-time Alf Brown Trophy winner Damien
Alf.
Barrett.
Only two
Hello,
times.
boys. I like the intro on the Wizard Cups. No celebrations of the Wizard Cup.
No, that was no smile celebrations,
smiles,
that
yeah.
one. That was Grant Thomas. We went business that year. It worked for us. We won our first 10 games of the home and away season,
Hang on.
2004.
You won a Wizard Cup and you weren't allowed to smile.
Yeah, that's the famous
Remember
Lenny
the
Hayes and
famous-
Grant Thomas were holding the trophy, and it was a real sad face.
It's like a
Grant
frustration
Thomas
we
was
won.
the Adelaide Power Stand.
Yeah. Don't you remember the old days,
No.
Daisy? There was no
big
smiling and
storyline.
there was no smiling and laughing and
What
joking.
year was it?
2004.
Yeah, I was
remember the old
16.
days? Oh, you weren't even playing yet.
Yeah.
They were the days, Damo, if you're in the paper or you did something or did an interview, it was always make sure you play well, otherwise you're going down Media Street. That was sort of the old days.
Well, you had a coach who just didn't want to celebrate anything to do with the pre-season at all, I think, didn't you? So, hey, we are teammates on this show on a Wednesday. I enjoy the time together on the Wednesday Rub, and I think we've developed a good rapport. But tonight, we're going to be enemies. You and I do different TV shows. So I do Footy Classified. You do the Fox Footy show. Tonight, I'm hearing, a little birdie tells me that this man also is going to be an opponent of ours tonight on live TV.
Yeah, can
What are
confirm.
you doing again? What are you on?
Talking footy.
Are you?
So we're all got different outlets tonight.
Well,
the
I've
number
just-
one man at Channel 7 now taking over
Look at him.
Talking
The
Footy.
number one man at Channel 7's gone on holidays, so they've gone to number 52, and I've replaced him.
Who are you replacing?
JB's out. He's on holidays, so I've just picked up all his work. I'll be in here
So
at the
you're
rush hour
are you
this
going to
afternoon.
host the show
I
tonight?
might be doing a little
Are
bit
you
with Tim.
taking over the main role? Because he has got the main role, I
No,
believe.
Wispy will go to the main role,
Oh,
Tim
okay.
Watson, and I'll just sort of play a quasi second host alongside Trent Cotchin and Sal.
Crack a few gags on there? You go,
No, we're a bit like your coach and Wizard Cup. We'll be very serious. And no smiling policy. No, but I do look forward to it. We've went through our meeting yesterday. There's lots to talk about. Yeah, so it should
What
be
do you
good.
go with?
We're talking about the Sam McClure Kane Corns dust up. Obviously, kickins.com will be a big feature. And we have done a deep dive. We've got Mitch Cleary going through what is on Kingy's laptop. He's hacked into it. And so apparently it's must-watch TV. Tune in tonight, Channel 7 from the time it starts.
after the front bar.
Is it?
That's
It's always after
that's
the front
I've
bar.
got a
you
busy
watch-
day, mate. I'll just systematically
After
get
you
through one
watch
thing at a
Footy
time.
You watch Footy
And then you watch
Classified.
AFL 360 first.
yeah.
There you
Damo,
go.
on Sunday, Joey confirmed that no one else is allowed a laptop on the first crack other than David King.
Is
He
that right?
confirmed it on air on Sunday.
How's that work?
Yeah, it's Kingy's thing. Yeah, so it's
Oh,
Kingy's
what?
thing.
He's got a patent on laptop
Just
use.
before we go on air, I put mine down and move it to the side, and it's Kingy's thing.
What is on it? Like, is it just notes? He uses it like a book, or
Yeah, he does. He writes. I still use the old school book, and
Yeah,
pen and
yeah.
paper.
I'm
He
the same.
uses the types it on his sort of email or onto his own work.
Do
so
you
he
think
reads it.
it makes his arguments more profound, or
Well, maybe we're trying to get it sponsored. The back of the laptop that might help, but
what would you call it?
not sure.
Kickins.com.
well, there you go, more branding.
Very good. Well, we're all busy.
While we're speaking of kick-ins, last week you told us that you were going to do some preparation for your upcoming Carlton draft game. We saw Matty Lloyd go out on the weekend.
Creeping up, only 10th of
Tuesday
August,
night.
I'm
So
playing.
last night it was meant to be your big night. I told you it was going to be cold. How'd you
I
go?
was going to start last week, and I just had a little cough, so I didn't want to start while I was still a bit sick. So last night was going to be my first night down at Beau Morris. I was going to train there, and then I got told on Monday that Bowie have got the bye this weekend, So they're giving the boys Tuesday night off. So there was no training last night. So then I was going to start next week, but now I've got a dinner on. That's an important one that I have to go to. So I'm going to have a 3-week preparation.
You've almost got to the stage where you're better off doing absolutely nothing now.
I've thought about that.
You also know there's other days in the week you could train.
And other clubs around Bo Morris.
I actually can't. Wednesday nights I've got work. Thursday nights I've got work.
Not with people, just by yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I probably could. But Lloydie's made me feel better. 10 disposals and 1 goal. So that's now at least the benchmark for me. I've just got to try and beat that.
Look, I do know Lloydie, as we all do.
He pulled up sore, didn't he?
He put up really sore, actually. He had a swollen hand. He had body spasms when he got out of the car.
Yeah, it happens.
But he tried way harder than I will.
Yeah,
I can
but he was invested.
Yeah.
Now, you can bag him for trying too hard, and I get where you may want to go with this,
No,
but
I'm
he
with
was
you, Purple.
invested.
Yeah.
He was invested to the point, even Joey, where he was either able to throw the grass into the air, not just once, but twice.
Yeah,
That was his shtick.
Yes.
I'm getting to this because your shtick was
Kicking snags, running, bouncing.
the kicking. You need to do the kicking
Damo.
on this charity match.
Well, I might have to if I don't have a touch in the first half. I need a kick in, do I?
You have
All
to
right.
have at least one, and I want to see you run from
How
the
far I
wing
can get.
and just take some little kid and give him a bake too. You're out of here.
Even if I'm in the forward line,
have
I
to do
go
that.
charge down. All right,
Yeah,
I'll guarantee
I have to do that for us.
might be the only kick I get, so I'll definitely take
Did you see Lloydie's shot on goal after he did the big...
Oh, dear.
Well, make sure you check out kickins.com on Instagram. It's got its own page. They post weekly of some of your
On
kickouts.
your Jasper. Some of your best stuff.
This is Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. Damo, your news is coming up next. All thanks to BWS. Go in store or online for whatever floats your boots and get your drinks for this week's games. That's refreshingly BWS. Fair dinkum or Fugazi still to come, plus your round 17 predictions. Collingwood Essendon, the first game of that round on Friday night. But it's time for some news, Damo, and not great news coming out of Moorabbin.
No, you're referring to Max King as we basically speak today here on this Wednesday, being ruled out for the season with what has been diagnosed as a PCL, posterior cruciate ligament problem, to emerge from the most recent game, that being a bad loss, or an ugly loss anyway, to the Port Adelaide Footy Club, a game in which Max King's own performance was again scrutinised and again put into the context of his career. Where is it going after 83 matches? Joey, I'll go to you first on this, obviously, the St Kilda connection, the way you analyse and study football. Where's he at, and what's this mean for both Max King now that he's out for the remainder of the year and St Kilda?
Well, the first point, it must be said, it does give him a little bit of grace for his performance on the weekend. If he's played with a posterior cruciate ligament from, we believe, from the third quarter onwards, so you've got to take that into consideration. But even before that, he was struggling. He's struggling for form, struggling for confidence. And that's probably been the case now for maybe 12 months or so. He's better than that, and we've seen it, and we know that. But he just now, with the injury, unfortunately for him, hopefully it's an opportunity to take some time away, get his mind and body right, and come back next year as a different player. And the player that St Kilda fans all hope he can be. He doesn't have to be the next Nick Riewoldt. He doesn't have to be Charlie Curnow, but he just needs to be the best version of Max King to help the footy club. So there's a bit of work to do there with his craft and his body language and his intensity, and hopefully the footy club will help him because they are committed long term. He will be at St Kilda long term. You can take that to the bank. He is the part of the future of some of the young players coming through. So unfortunate for this year.
You can take that from the bank from the St Kilda perspective, but can you claim to know what Max himself is thinking? Now, he's already got a contract for 2025 and
Max
2026.
was keen to stay at the club. They were already negotiating a longer-term deal, which indicates that Max is keen to stay at the club. So I don't think because other people in the media try and make a case for Max King or speak on Max King's behalf, he was pretty keen to stay at the club. That's why they were a fair way down the track with their contract.
I've got a couple of views on this. I think the first one is that he should want to be somewhere near Nick Riewoldt and a Charlie Curnow in terms of you've got to lift what your expectations are. You can't just be sort of going along as a bit of a maybe, could have been. And the last thing that St Kilda need, Max King needs, is for him to go away from football going, what could have been? He was a highly touted athlete and hasn't quite reached his potential. I think he has an opportunity now to go and get in the weights room and this is a selfish point of view because we're not talking holistically about St Kilda because it's obviously a big out, but go and put on some serious size so you don't get pushed around as much. So you have a different way of playing the game. I think he still plays at the minute, and this is my take on it from how I see him playing, like an under-18s bloke. He still wants to just use athleticism and the ability that he could reach over the top of a lot of people, which you can't do at the top level. You have to find a different way to get yourself involved. That might be one or two things that he can do throughout the game. But go and put some size on, work on your tank, and then come out with expectation
The situation now, played game 300 3 weeks ago or 2 matches ago, had the bye, then came out of it, subbed out of the game last week against Carlton, not playing this week. We don't know when we see him again. We actually don't know if we see him again, given the back problem he's got, maybe serious. We certainly don't have any line of sight on what he's doing in 2025. Does he retire? Does he stay at Richmond? Does he go to the Gold Coast Suns? It's been a narrative that Richmond probably was never going to be able to avoid to this point of the season, but it's now becoming pointy-ended.
Well, first of all, the Dustin Martin conversation has been going on for 3, 4, 5 years, that he's going to leave, they should trade him. All this talk has always been speculation about Dusty, and I get it. One, because it creates headlines, and two, because everyone can say something about Dusty knowing he's not going to respond or there's going to be no rebuttal. So it's almost a free hit. I've been strong that I don't think Dustin will play for another club. I can't see it happening. I don't think it will.
So you've been strong on that. Are you strong that he won't play beyond 2024?
I was always 50-50. And, you know, my understanding the last time, it was like, well, it was going to be wait till the end of the year and just take the whole season for where it's at. Where are Richmond at? You know, what are some of his mates going to be doing? You know, he's played a lot of footy with, and what does he want to do? So I read your article today on the AFL website, Damo, and you're saying the club need an answer. I don't agree with that. I think Dustin has every right to wait till the end of the season. Just let everything calm down, work out where his life's at, what he wants to do. I think Richmond should respect that and give him that time. So, I mean, no one knows what he wants to do, but I think that's how it should sit. And I think he's still got a bit of footy left in this year. But I reckon he was playing injured because for Adamuze to flag that he was never, or was unlikely to go to Perth and travel
before last week's game
was an indication that he was going into the game with some sort of injury.
The context of me writing that, and I did write that, that I feel I need an answer. They can keep the answer private, and if he's out, he's out. You just respect that. But it was more in the bigger picture that I feel this club needs to
work out what they want to do.
What they want to do, and work backwards from the Dusty situation. If he, I think, Days, and tell me if I'm wrong in saying this, I think of the one player on that Richmond list who can do what he wants, and if he wants to go around again next year, Richmond just goes, yep, no worries, we'll work that around you. I think he's earned that right.
Yep.
But there's so many other questions. Tom Lynch has got a contract for one more year. If a club comes knocking, do they open up that possibility? Or do they just say, no, we've got him, we need him? Rioli's an interesting one too, 3 more years, or at least 2 on a contract. There's some interest there from the Gold Coast Suns. Do the club explore that? And then they've got decisions to make on both Grimes and Prestia, whose bodies are seriously banged up.
With the Dusty one, I'd be seriously shocked if he hadn't already made a decision. If he didn't know what next year looks like one way or the other. Because 8 rounds to go, if you're questioning whether you want to play again, that probably means you shouldn't. Or you know you've got to 300 and this was going to be it regardless. I think that would have already been made up in his mind. And for the Tigs, maybe they already know without saying anything publicly. Yep. That could be a case of it. But you're right, there's going to be so much movement at that football club. Liam Baker, the speculation that he might go back west, who's become a really important player for them. Tom Lynch, you'd expect to still be playing just purely because of that back-ended contract. And if someone was to pick him up, they'd be taking on a lot of that. So, you know, Dusty, whether or not he's the biggest piece of that puzzle at the minute, he still is a valuable player, no doubting that. But he probably doesn't have as much of a warranted threat as he once did.
So, Damo, if you're Richmond, would you consider trading, if Rioli asked for a trade, and even if Shea Bolton asked for a trade, would you consider trading them away and just loading up on picks and really trying to start a rebuild?
If I'm Richmond, I'm open to the conversation. I'm not saying I'm open to locking that in. And I think you need to find out, is Rioli, what is Gold Coast really prepared to pay to get him? And what does it look like with Shea Bolton? Now, again, they're players you'd keep because they're contracted and they've already done that. So that's the easy answer. Yep. But that article too was much about Brendan Gale back in May said he was out and he's still there. We know he's going to go and work for another footy club, and that was more the point of that article. Yep. They've got a lot of questions. I don't know who's making them and who's steering them, and I think they're at a pretty crucial juncture given that they're 2 wins, 13 losses with Adamuze in a world of hurt right now in his first season as coach. Jordan Boyd, Carlton player, got off at the tribunal last night for his hit on Ryan Mansell. Days, you and I spoke about it yesterday on the rush hour briefly. I felt that was the right outcome for this. I felt that it was basically instigated, the contact, the way it was received by Mansell himself. Joey, you also know my arguments on this. It took 4 hours at a tribunal hearing on a Tuesday night to determine that was indeed the case.
We saw it live, and Stevie Johnson and I, watching the replay, said that he had no case to answer for. The fact, and the terminology that he was coming in with force and didn't try and stop. If you were going to tackle any person on the ground, you expect them once they collect the football that they're going to present upright rather than curling up like a turtle and putting their head into you. And which is what happened. So I don't know actually how it got to that point, because if the AFL came out and said that's our explanation of it, this is the reason the contact was made, The fact that it goes to tribunal 4 hours later, that's just a waste of everyone's time.
Yeah. GWS, after round 5, top of ladder, 5 wins, 0 losses. It's been a disaster from that moment onwards. They've gone from kicking up until about round 7, 107 points or thereabouts on average, to as an average now from rounds 8 through to 16, about 67 points. It's been as dramatic a drop-off we've seen in season. As pronounced as their surge was last year in the positive way, their plummeting this year is equally dramatic.
It has been dramatic, and there were big expectations on the Giants. I certainly had high hopes for them. For me, it has to be a belief and a confidence thing because they've still got the talented players. They've still got a system that stacks up the way Adam Kingsley wants them to play, but they're just nowhere near it. So I just think that they've lost faith in what they're doing. They've lost confidence in one another. They're all slightly off. They maybe become slightly insular.
Have they been figured out?
Oh,
So you reckon that's a possibility?
Well,
Maybe
I
a little
think
bit.
At the start of the season, they were certainly playing differently in certain facets to how they were last year, and that was catching sides off guard. As to now, you
and
can
what
sort
was the main thing they were doing?
the ability of those half forwards to get up the ground and that tsunami that they spoke about with handball chains and just running back towards goal, turning every defender around, and then making you question whether or not as a defender you press out, and then they Joe the Goose you all the way up the field. I think that's got to have something to do with it. But again, like we've seen throughout the season, Josh Kelly out again, which is a big one,
massive.
and players out of form. You've got the best defender in the competition, one of the best midfield kicks in the competition. Your captain's not in the best form of all time, and outside of that, there's some question marks.
And just on that, Kelly, 4 to 5 week diagnosis on another calf injury from which he's just returned.
4
It's a
to
separate
5.
leg, but yeah.
And the Giants face an informed Carlton as well this round on Saturday night. We'll get your predictions soon on Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub, Joey, Daisy and Damo. Now, I did not write this first one.
Oh, no, of course not.
Daisy Thomas, Nick Daicos is already the most clutch player currently in the competition.
Oh, fair income. I don't think there'd be too many disagreeing with that. And off the top of your head, nobody really jumps off the page for me. What he did on the weekend was phenomenal in that last quarter. He nearly single-handedly put the club on his back and said, I will take you for a win. So I think that's fair income.
Can I give you some numbers to back that up? So
course you
I'll
can.
roll with it. So he's 14 times Collingwood have already come back and won from three-quarter time. To give you an idea, Carlton in 10 years have done it 13 times, come back from trailing at three-quarter time. But Nick Daicos, he was the third highest rated player in that last quarter.
Are you going with this tonight on Fox?
No, I'm not, but I was thinking about it, but I'm going to do it here now. So he was a top couple of rated. We know
Thanks
how good
for sharing.
His last 3 games where Collingwood have come from behind to win. So earlier this year it was the Carlton game. Remember where he kicked the goal against Walsh? He was the highest rated player on the ground. The game in round 14 against North Melbourne when he had that amazing last
And
quarter.
they came from 9 goals down in the third
He
quarter.
was the 5th highest rated player in that last quarter. And then the last game, round 19 last year against Port Adelaide, when they came from behind to win, he was the 2nd highest rated player on the ground. So not only is he playing in these games, he's the reason why they are coming back to win the way they do. That makes him the most clutch player. You could almost argue that we've seen already to be able to do it 14 times in 60 games.
That's a big call, Montagna,
That
right
is a
there.
massive call, Montagna.
Let's stick with Collingwood. Not on a positive site here, though, Damo. Darcy Moore has the pointiest knees in the AFL.
Mischievous.
Well,
Rabs.
it's fair dinkum, but I'm not critical of Darcy Moore for the damage that he's now inflicted, unfortunately for Darcy, on Christian Petrarca and Jared Witts. The damage sustained by Petrarca on King's birthday was serious. He won't be seen again this season. And then as we've learnt since the weekend's game against the Gold Coast, and again after he contacted Witts late in the match and in a marking contest, has now meant Witts will be out for some time now with a fractured vertebra. So, yeah, I don't look at it as though it's an issue that needs to be dealt with. It's just that there's 2 times this year that Darcy Moore has made some serious damage on opponents.
It's a nothing issue.
Mm-hmm.
Geelong need to leave Tom Stewart in the midfield, Joey.
Fugazi, no, I think it was just a circuit breakup, just to get him a bit of ball and get him free. His best spot is across halfback. He was okay as a midfielder. He didn't shoot the lights out, so I think we'll see him back in defence.
Gold Coast simply must break their away game hoodoo this week against North, Damo.
Yeah, that's fair income, but it won't mean anything in the big picture because of who it is they're playing.
I would usually say, what are you doing? But I agree. They beat North Melbourne away. You should. And if you don't, well, does it change any of the
It
narrative?
doesn't change the narrative one
So
bit.
they finally win an away game, Gold Coast, and it's going to be nut means nothing.
It doesn't count. This team's won 1 game this year, Joey.
Is it a danger game there?
Well, that's a different question, isn't it?
Imagine if they lose Gold Coast.
Oh.
Daisy.
Just imagine.
Patrick Cripps is in better form now than his Brownlow year.
I'm going to say, have you got stats to back this up?
Yeah, I do.
Just say yes.
I'm going to say fair income. Just off a purely form and just watching him play, the way he's leading the side and involving others, I think that's been one of the great highlights, is that he doesn't have the sense that he has to do it all himself, although at times he is. He's bringing others into the game, and I think that's been a big reason as to why they're playing so well.
More uncontested footy, more score involvements, more ball forward of centre. He's evolved as a player.
See, look at that. That's the feel, and that's the stats.
And Sam Walsh has helped that cause too. I know he's been around in that same period, but not to the levels he's been playing last year.
Pretty handy Robin, isn't he?
Yeah.
Speaking of players who have evolved this season, Joey, Isaac Rankin is the dynamic midfielder Adelaide has been crying out for.
Yeah, that's fair income. They can build around Isaac Rankin. I was surprised to hear Matthew Nicks about 6 weeks ago say that he has an elite tank, Isaac Rankin, which surprised me. But now when you're seeing him play, he should be that mid-forward that every gun team, the good teams need to have. Alongside with Jordan Dawson, they can build a future with Saligo. There's enough there.
I spoke to Reece Shaw about him earlier on in the season. He goes, if it's a 3-minute run, he'll come dead last by about 50 metres. If you give him a 3-minute run to chase a football, he'll beat everyone by the length of the straight. He's a bit of a golden retriever in that when he's into footy mode, he just goes and goes and goes when he has to run around a park, and there's been plenty of them.
Yeah, oh, that's me.
It isn't so great.
10, no, thanks.
And he's been incredible. He's a real point of difference. I love the kid and what he's doing.
Damo, Rory Lobb's move to the backline could revitalise his Bulldogs' career.
Fair income. Again, I say that with the caveat that his performance in that role last week was against North Melbourne, but there was enough to like out of it.
And that doesn't count his game.
No,
It's North.
no, it's like the Gold Coast question before. I'm going to need to see more beyond the game against North Melbourne to make sweeping statements.
Joey, Ollie Dempsey is now in the box seat for the Rising Star.
No, another Fugazi. I still think Georgie Wardlaw's in front. He wouldn't want to get another injury because he's missing the 2 with concussion. He missed one earlier in the year. If he misses any more, he's in danger. But if he comes back and picks up where he left off, I think Georgie will still win it. But Ollie Dempsey closing the gap, absolutely.
Daisy, the Giant Menzies rush behind should be the regular interpretation of that rule.
Well, how do I answer this? If you're going to tick off that it was the correct decision,
They said it
incorrect.
was incorrect.
good. Well, then I can say Fugazi. Look, I'm as confused as anyone. If you want to make that the rule, we'll make it the rule.
Yeah.
But that isn't the rule currently, so it should have been a non-free kick, which,
I would have answered that fair income, Rabsy.
So you think that should just be...
I had no issue with that as much as I did other issues on the game that night, and I was surprised they walked back on that one.
It would make it more interesting.
In the
if you
future,
couldn't.
I'm happy if they change. If
Yeah.
they make the rush behind exactly like the boundary line where it's insufficient intent,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
happy with that.
Yeah.
That's what we
And
should
for
always.
the-
But at the moment, that's not the rule. So I thought he did
For
the right
the
thing to
game,
take it over.
that would make the game, you'd assume, a lot more high scoring. Imagine blokes pinned in the back corner and they're just trying to quick kick it out to anywhere just out of hope. Maybe that's
Well, they
somewhere
might
we
get
go.
through too. That's the other thing.
Oh, or you run the field.
Joey, Freo finally repaid your long-held faith in them with the win over Sydney.
It's for sticking fat with Fremantle. No, they're playing some good footy.
It's not called sticking fat when you get paid.
No, I'm sticking that with my tips, with just tipping them all year. They're starting to fulfil their potential and their talent, and they're as good as any to finish in the 3rd and 4th spot.
You went early with this. The 2 ruckman is a real key for them.
It's their point of
I
difference.
went with you too.
It's a point of difference
Yeah.
for them. It's a great strength.
Damo, Nat Fyfe must be the most well-credentialed tagger of all time.
I would like a bit of notice on that one because I reckon there would have been. Well, actually,
How many other two-time Brownlow medalists?
Lib was a one-time Brownlow
Yeah.
medalist who was a tagger later. Look, even Nathan Buckley, I think, attempted to tag James Hird one day. No, look, you're probably right. I'd say that 2 Brownlow medals. I'm just trying to think. He played on him.
Yeah. Would have shook hands at the start and said, you have 40, I'll have 40, bye.
Well, actually, there were times where Bucks spent periods of good chunk of match time on one carry there for at least 1 or 2 games. Not the whole game.
Doesn't count because that's against North.
That's a good point.
that was against North with Carey when they stood for something on ground. I reckon that's a fair income, Rabs. Yeah, there you go. Well done.
Damo, I'm going to stick with you again.
Oh.
Fair income or Fugazi?
Oh, I think it's as good as it's ever been. The umpiring. Yeah, we're in the 2nd year of a 4 umpire system as well. So we're on a journey with the 4 umpire system.
I do another show called The Sounding Board with Craig Hutchison, and there's a segment called Spin City. That was Spin City, so that's Fugazi. The game has never sorry, the game has been umpired better than it has been right now. So I don't know what Andrew Dillon was. I get why he's doing it. I'll probably do the same thing right now publicly to try and change the narrative, but I think there's an acknowledgement required yesterday that wasn't there.
A lot of discussion around the 4 umpires has started to happen over the last couple of weeks, Joe.
Daisy's been big on this. The 4 umpires has not helped the game. In fact, it's probably made it more confusing for the umpires.
Well, you're just seeing more things from a different angle,
Yeah.
which means you'll get different outcomes. It's pretty simple. So, anyway, what would I know? I'm not a doctor.
Finally, Joey, the most relieved man in the AFL fraternity will be Steve Johnson because he'll never have to hear the Scott Selwood question again after Brownie asked this.
Nathan Brawl, welcome to the Sunday Rub. You'd love to be out there. Where are you placed and how long until we see you back?
How are we, boys? How you going?
Good, mate.
Good. That's good. Back where?
Back out playing football. I apologise.
Yeah, no, I'm out there today.
So I'm looking forward to you getting back out.
Jeez, my form must be going pretty good.
It's been a busy week, Brody. And I've missed the fact that you come back. But,
Come back. He hasn't missed for about... How many games have you missed this year in general?
Just the one at the start of the year, but
He's probably top 3 in
must have been
Richmond.
the one I saw, Brody. I apologise.
I thought Daisy or Jay Clark might have been trying to stitch me up there.
Oh, Nathan. Sometimes his true colours come through. Nath. Oh, far out. Yes, he's taking the cake. He's topped it now.
Well, he's usually had to sprint to get there, hasn't he?
Oh.
So there's...
I've just watched that on repeat, and it gets funnier and funnier.
Seriously.
You stitched him up, though.
Nah, Stevie J did, which was smart from Stevie, who's clearly not launching many rockets on a Sunday usually. Not in the sense that he's not a smart guy, just often doesn't present in the best fashion. But Brownie goes, how many weeks he got till he's back? And Stevie, quick as a flash, said 3. And away we went.
Well, the Sunday Rub team have St Kilda versus Sydney from Marvel Stadium this Sunday. We'll get your predictions for all the round 17 matches next on Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub. Don't forget you can hear every single game across round 17 on the Listener app and, of course, on Triple M. Kicking off Joey Montagna Friday night, Collingwood versus Essendon.
Yeah, massive game, big crowd. Bombers, still a lot of question marks on them after they couldn't get the job done against the Cats. Their arch nemesis, Collingwood, who we're going to love to bounce back on the big stage on Friday night. So I'm going to tip the Pies. Fascinated to see what Essendon dish up.
I'm going to go with the Pies too. I've just got more confidence in a big game on the Pies than I do the Bombers.
I'm tipping the Pies, concerned, and this is a Wednesday when we're speaking about who may be in and or out.
Josh Daicos, Braden Maynard, question marks.
mark.
As we speak, Damo, 11:30 on Wednesday morning.
McCreary
McCreary
time code it
also.
because
And
things
McCreary
change.
is out.
Yes,
Yeah.
and
McCreary's
Noble.
Ooh.
Noble's in for concussion protocols.
Yeah, so there's 4 decent, handy players. Concerned, but Pies.
Well, we know Damo's thoughts on this game already, Daisy. North Melbourne versus Gold Coast at Marvel Stadium.
Well, as much as it is a game that they should win, I am slightly concerned, but I can't tip against them. They have to win this game.
Spot on. Surely Gold Coast. Surely.
Yes, Gold Coast.
And the form of LDU, Damo, at least you got to be positive about that.
Yep. Positive. Yep.
And Charlie Comben. Charlie Comben. He's
Charlie Comben's
flying.
been good. Yeah.
Gee whiz. Not overly positive.
It's just no. I do remember a time
contemplate-
when we in the media looked at what happened from a win-loss perspective, and we now just gloss over this every week. with
Would
North
you
Melbourne.
contemplate changing teams?
No, that's the other thing I never would do. I would
Okay.
never ever change teams. So that's
What about
I'm
for
staunch.
cash?
No, I'd never. And the problem is I've given my love of North Melbourne to my 2 sons, who one doesn't care for it, and the other one's just what happens every week. So yeah, that's been a problem.
Well done, though. I thought I had you there.
Well, let's get your thoughts, Damo, on Port Adelaide versus the Western Bulldogs. There's a few top 8 defining games, and this is one of them.
Again, Wednesday, we're forced to have a selection right now. I'm going to go with Port Adelaide, but I could easily change that by Thursday, and I'm sorry to do that. I don't like sitting on the fence, but it's a literal toss of the coin game, isn't it?
Port Adelaide weren't convincing beating St Kilda. They're still struggling for form, I reckon. They got the win that they needed just to relieve some pressure, but the Western Bulldogs are up and going. I think the Doggies, if they're fair income, they should go over to Adelaide and beat them.
Half a game out of the 8 with the 3rd best percentage, the Western Bulldogs, in the competition, which is hard to look past. However, I'm sticking fat with Port, and I'm sticking fat with Jason Horne-Francis being the one, just says, boys, on the back of the shoulders, here we go.
What about this game, Joey? Geelong versus the team you said had a 10-year rebuild last year, Hawthorn.
4 years into it, they are flying. What do they want? 6 of 7. Maybe it stops, comes to a bit of a halt this week. Hard to win down at Geelong. For a young side, I've been there, it's tough.
Does it worry him, though? Does it worry him?
I don't know. Probably not.
Yeah.
No, they
Well,
might
Optus
just go.
Stadium
They
didn't
might
worry
just be plucky and go down there and knock off the Cats. But I just got to be like what you said earlier. Got too much faith in Geelong as a club and their coach and the team. They found a bit of form which they desperately needed against Essendon. I think they find a way to win at home.
For the same reasons, I'm going for it, but it's not a confident tip on this one. I think that, it would not surprise me if Hawthorn got them as well.
And the evenness of the competition, 5th v 13th, with one game separating them. Cats for me.
What about the Giants versus Carlton Days? The Giants have got some injuries and Carlton are in real good form.
Yeah, I tipped the Giants yesterday when I had to do some preemptive tipping. Now with Josh Kelly being out, I'd probably be revisiting that. However, I just, again, for whatever reason, I feel Carlton, for how good they're going, will have a little slip up and the Giants need to get something going. So I'm tipping the Giants.
I've kept the faith on the Giants. Now I'm jumping off. I've jumped off.
Abandoned ship?
Yeah, I have. I just seen enough. I can't tip them anymore. Until they prove it, I'm going to have to go with Carlton. They were flying.
I'm the same. I have been maintaining my tips on the Giants most weeks this year, but I'm off now. So the Blues, particularly with what they are now doing, longer and harder against every opponent.
What about Fremantle versus Richmond at home?
Am I allowed to tip Freo in this one?
Of course you can.
You get paid by.
I think
You'd be
they
sacked
get
if
the
you
job
don't.
done here. I'll get the job done.
Yeah,
Agree. Free medal.
Damo, what about Melbourne versus West Coast?
Yeah, Melbourne quite easily. Again, just similar to what I just said about the Giants, I was happy to buy into this rebirth of the Eagles, but it doesn't exist. It was a false dawn, and Melbourne.
We all drank the Kool-Aid.
We did. We on this show for a few weeks.
Yeah.
5 weeks in a row now they've lost, and I think it's 8 of 9.
You said on Footy Talk podcast, Joey, that Sydney now have a blueprint of how to be beaten. Can the Saints do it on Sunday?
Well, it's not. It's a blueprint in regards to it's not rocket science. If you can quell the top three, the superstars that have all the influence, and it goes a long way to
Just trying
winning.
to pump
I
up
might
your
have said
podcast.
that,
Yeah,
mate.
thank you. I said
I might have said that of you last night when we played the clip.
He did actually. He bagged you last
Well, I
night.
didn't bag
on the
you.
rush
I was
hour.
like,
No, you
oh,
did.
Not rocket science.
Yeah,
Yeah,
not
I
rocket
wasn't-
science. You stop the best players and you score more. Oh, look, you're going to win.
wasn't my deepest analysis, Stacey. Stop Heaney, stop Gordon, stop Warner, you win. Not hard. Come on, St Kilda.
Was that your
Find a-
fingernail deep one?
Yeah, that's the fingernail deep analysis. Find a way. Tag all three of them and Saints will win.
But will they win?
No, they won't.
Good. No, I can't see the Saints winning.
Neither.
No.
And finally, Brisbane versus Adelaide, Damo, to round out round 17.
Well, if you stop Rankin and if you stop Dawson, is that how you do it? Yeah,
That's-
how you do it? Yeah. No, Lions. You know, I like what they've done. I know some people can pull apart what they just did to get over the line, but I still think they're on a nice little surge at the moment, and they like their chances of still causing major damage this year. So Brisbane for me.
Yeah, we thought they were going to be the side like GWS and Carlton last year. 4 straight off the bye, in the 8 for the first time. Got a softish run coming out West Coast. Sydney's the outlier, the Suns and St Kilda. This is all pointing towards a big September.
Win a shootout. This one, Brisbane will beat Adelaide in a shootout.
Is that your certainty?
No, Fremantle is my certainty, and my roughie is North Melbourne are my roughie. I think they are a half a chance. They're playing good footy.
I'm going to make Sydney my certainty, and I tip Port Adelaide, so I'll be going Western Bulldogs, my outsider.
Yep, I went for Port Adelaide, who are the outsiders. So there's my outsider component. Certainty-wise, the Swans over St Kilda.
Well, as always, you can hear every game live on Triple M and the Listener app. Starting Collingwood, Essendon on Friday night. It's a huge blockbuster game at the MCG. Brownie will be there. Das, Jason Dunstall, Isaac Smith, and the Midweek Rub's own Damien Barrett. This has been Triple M Footy's Midweek Rub.